Well, thank you all so much for coming out. What love and support you guys are showing me here in Mobile, and I really appreciate it. It's been a few years since I was here before, and so I'm sure there's a lot of you that I have not met yet. And I was hearing from readers online, and whether it was email or Facebook or Twitter, when they see my tour schedule, and sometimes I get the notes and saying, well, what about Mobile? And so I finally said this year, we've got to really make it happen, and I'm very glad that I did. So I first want to say how grateful I am to all of you that you are here, of course, tonight supporting me today, but that you have done it for so many years. You're the reason that I'm able to keep writing, that I even want to keep writing, and why I want to continue on with my career. I'm just going to talk quickly because I don't want to hold you off for too much longer, but I want to just tell you a little bit. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about the book that you have in hand, The Perfect Marriage, which is my 18th title. Tell you a little bit about what's coming up in a few months, and then also just a little bit about how I got my career started, because I always think, you know, while you're reading my work, sometimes you just like to know, you know, why I started doing what I do, how I did it. Maybe there are writers that are here tonight. Maybe it's just something that you've just been wanting to do, that you have a dream of doing. It doesn't have to be writing. It can be anything else. For The Perfect Marriage, this is very, very different from my Reverend Curtis Black titles. It's still dealing with real-life social issues, and so if you've read most of my work, you know that I try my best to focus on real topics, whether it be controversial ones or taboo ones. I just want to focus on things that any of us might be able to relate to. And so here you have a couple, Denise and Derek Shaw, who really are happily married, and they have been for 15 years. They have a beautiful 12-year-old daughter. They are very well educated. They're both in management positions, so they're both earning six-figure incomes. They live in the gorgeous home. They drive the beautiful cars. So they live what most of us would consider to be the perfect life, and we would really believe that they have the perfect marriage. What nobody knows, whether it be family members or friends or their co-workers, is that both of them are dangerously addicted to drugs. Denise with Vicodin, and then her husband Derek with cocaine. And so the reason I wanted to write about addiction is because it's one of the topics that I really haven't covered throughout the other 17 books. I may have touched on it a little here and there, but for the most part I haven't. And I also wanted to touch on it in another direction, because usually when you hear about drug addicts, you see a certain person in your mind. You believe it's a homeless person, and most of us want to believe it's really that street hardcore sort of person, or maybe they had this horrible childhood, which in reality, when you're talking about addiction, it can affect anyone across the board. It doesn't matter how much money you have, doesn't matter what color you are, doesn't matter what your social status is. So in this story, you'll see how it really starts to tear their lives apart in ways that they would have never imagined. And then, of course, the idea that you have a 12-year-old daughter who doesn't have just one parent who has become an addict, but two. So you can imagine what her life will be like as well. And it is her who really makes a decision to try to do something about it, and it really causes even more problems for them. So I'm hoping that you will enjoy this particular story. I look forward to hearing from you online with your feedback, letting me know. And then, of course, I'm sure what you really want to hear is, yes, the next Curtis book comes out May 7th. Why can't I get that kind of excitement for The Perfect Marriage? And so it's the milestone book. It's the 10th one in the series. And so what I have to tell you, what most people don't know, is I never planned on writing a series about the Reverend Curtis Black. And so it's actually my husband in the black that you can blame, because he's the one who suggested, he suggested when I was writing my third book, because my first book was Behind Closed Doors, the second was Here and Now. And so when I was getting ready to write the third one, I said to him, I want to stick with real life issues, and I really want it this time to be something that everyone will know about. It won't matter who the person is. And so he said, what about all of the issues going on in the church? And he was saying it because we had quite a few situations, I'll just say it that way, in our city. You know, babies are being born, not with the pastor's wife, but babies were being born. And so there were just a lot of situations and problems under the sun. So I thought, you know, maybe I will, because I've been in church my entire life, so certainly not a lot of research had to be done, because I've seen and heard it all. And a lot of times when people have said to me throughout the years, you know, would these things really happen? Would a pastor really do this? Would a pastor's wife really do that? And I always say, well, you know what? Curtis is very mild compared to what I could write, you know, really tell the truth. And what I didn't know, though, is when I finished Casting the First Stone, that I thought it would be over with, and so I moved on to a book called It's a Thin Line. And then I wrote A Taste of Reality, which was very, very much different than Casting the First Stone. But I kept hearing from readers at events and by email, well, that was a nice book you wrote, but what is the Reverend Curtis Black up to? And I'd be very nice, but in my mind I'd be thinking, well, he's not up to anything, it's kind of over, and he's moved on with his life, and so have I, and that's the end of it. And so finally, a couple more years passed, and my agent ended up hearing a conversation when she was at a dental appointment, and she's like, I just feel like, so many readers are still asking for this. You have very loyal readers who really support you, and when they do that, you have an obligation to give them what they're asking for. So then I wrote Too Much of a Good Thing, which was the second one. And once he got kicked out of the first church, he just moved on to another. And then he moved on to another wife. And so then when that didn't work out and he got kicked out, then he moved on to a third wife, being Charlotte. Except in Charlotte, he met his match finally in her. And this time he was smarter. He decided to found his own church so that he would never be kicked out of a church ever again. And that's where he's been ever since then. But after I wrote The Best Kept Secret, which was the third, I thought I'll just make it a trilogy. This will be the end of it. But then when Aaron burned down the house, I received way more emails than I had with the first three, and so then it continued. So then I thought, well, maybe what my readers are looking for is redemption. They want him to repent. They want to see him become this wonderful man of God, this great husband, this great father. So I thought I will just really turn his life around. And so in Sin No More, he really started to make a turn for the better, and nobody was happy with that. Then I got even more messages saying, well, when is the next Curtis Black book coming out? And so I thought, gosh, you know what, maybe I just don't know how to end the story. Maybe that's what my problem is, and so I've got to figure out what to do here. And so then I became a little nervous, because what I didn't want is for all of you to start saying, well, she's not writing anything new. This isn't any different than the last one. It's not fresh. The story isn't moving forward. And so I just wanted to be able to stop before all of you start telling me I need to stop writing it. And so I said to my husband, how much more can Curtis do? Honestly, how much? And my husband said to me, Victor Newman has been doing it for 30 years. So clearly Curtis has a lot more in store, for you and for your readers. And so that is why I have continued it. And, every now and then I'll get messages, or like I'm at events such as this, somebody will say, I really like your other stories and enough of Curtis already. But if it's only 1 or 2 out of 100, then that's not enough for me to stop. So until all of you say enough, I guess, already, and I guess I should say now, I'm always saying, who's bold enough to just be honest and say, you would never care. If I never write about Curtis again, you're going to be fine with that. Raise your hand. That's my, well, see, look at this. This is it's just awful. It's just awful. So we got a little bit more to go with the storyline, and then moving forward with A House Divided. How many of you read The Reverend's Wife? Okay, so if you read The Reverend's Wife, then Charlotte is really a big part of it, but so is Matthew and his situation. I'm just going to leave it at that for people who have not read it. But again, the saga continues, and I started my career because really I was just a little bit tired of corporate America. And I had moved on by that time working for city government, but still the idea of working for someone else, that's really where the idea of writing came about. I had always been told as early as elementary school that I was a storyteller, that I needed to consider a career in writing. I didn't pay any attention to it, not even when I was in college, and my professors were telling me, and instructors the same thing. But then I thought maybe I will give it a try, and so that's when I sat down. And actually then, when I wrote Behind Closed Doors, I was writing every evening, and in the weekend I was working full-time as a financial analyst. So it had nothing to do with writing, but I'm very glad I did, and I went forward with finishing the manuscript. But then, of course, the disappointment came because I started trying to find a literary agent, tried to find an editor, and received tons of rejection letters, and they just sort of poured in one after another. And so at that point, I really just felt like I've done what I really wanted to do. I enjoyed writing. I could tell how much I loved telling the stories, but since it wasn't working, I just felt like it was really time to move on. And so my mom was hearing me say that, and she said, I understand how you feel, but the fact that we have passed around copies of the manuscript to so many people locally, and they're saying they can't put it down, I think that means something, and you just shouldn't give up. And so I heard her, But when you've had a mom who's always told you you can do anything, you know, I don't know how much you really believe that. You know, is she really going to tell you this is awful if it's awful? And so I just kind of didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. And then finally my husband said, well, you have this background in business. Why can't you start your own company and publish the book yourself? And so that's how I ended up self-publishing. It did very well. It sold just over 10,000 copies within the first 6 months. Halfway to that point, I took that information back to an agent. She signed me on and signed the second book. And so now I do look back. Just that whole idea of me wanting to give up. And I share that with all of you because if there's something that you have aspired to do or you wanted to do all your life, it doesn't matter if you're 18 or 80, there's still time for you to do that. It's just a matter of believing in yourself, and what I say is believe in God, believe in yourself, and believe in whatever you're trying to accomplish, and believe in that order, you know, that it can't happen. You just have to kind of push the fear out of the way and just move forward with it. I remember when I said to my husband, we're going to have to self-publish, that means we're going to have to invest a certain amount of money, and so what if this doesn't work? That was really my big question, because I was thinking if it doesn't work, we will have lost the money and it just would have been really a waste of time. And I still remember him all those years ago saying, if it doesn't work, then you just move on to something else. You know, what do you really have to lose? But do you want to go, say, 10 years down the road wondering if you could have did it? I don't think you would want to have that feeling. So that's really how I got started, and you know, how I've gone from that point to this point. That was 18 years ago, and now this is the 18th book, and so it's just really been a wonderful, wonderful journey. And so I will allow all of you, if you have questions, we'll take 2 or 3 questions before we start the signing, or if you just have comments, please feel free to make those now. Not all at once, though. Yes.
How did you meet your husband?
Well, you know what? Wow. See, this is what I do. When I say ask any question you want, that's what people do, don't they? No, but I met him, actually, we were just out one night. I was out with my girlfriend, and he was out, and it was on a Friday night. And I was never a person who was a big partier. That just wasn't really my personality. But she had just had a child, and she was wanting to get out of the house. And so she's like, let's just go out for a little while. And so we did, and we were just kind of sitting around. And my husband actually retired from Chrysler Corporation. So he worked second shift when I met him, and he just so happened to take a vacation day that Friday night. Otherwise, there's no way he would have been out on a Friday night. And so we met, and that was in 1990, and that was a Friday night. He called me like maybe that next Monday or Tuesday. Finally, we got together on Thursday and spent all of Memorial Day weekend, because a week later, that was the holiday weekend. And then in September of that same year, we were married, and that was over 22 years ago. So. Yes.
This isn't a question, it's a comment. I first started reading your books last year. I spent an inordinate amount of time reading you and Harris, and someone recommended someone I used to teach with. And so I picked up Catching the First Stone, and I want to tell you that I have become a fast fan, and I want to commend you on how personable you are, because I've communicated with you on Facebook.
What's your name?
Cedric Bell.
Oh yeah,
I'm a friend of the Geo Hunt.
Yes.
You don't see it a lot among celebrities, and I just think that it's awesome that you're very personable and very gracious to people.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. I mean, I say that. It's easy to say something, because we can say whatever and mean something different, but I think you don't know. And I really mean it. My husband can tell you that. When I say that I write because of my readers and because of all of you and, you know, the encouragement that you give me, I really mean that. And so my days when I am online and I'm able to communicate back and forth with all of you, that's my reward for what I do. And being able to come out to events like that. I mean, there's nothing else I can imagine doing, getting up at 3 a.m. to take 5, 6 o'clock flights every day this week. I do it really because I'm hoping to be able to meet all of you and just to be able to have that personal connection. So thank you so much for that.
Do you think the Shaws, this Reverend Curtis is great, and this one is very good also. Do you think that the Shaws could have their
series?
What happens
series?
Next?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking it, but every city somebody has asked that question, and
you close it up good.
I guess we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Yeah.
We hashtagged on Twitter back in July, and the discussion was a movie. Like series.
Yes.
Where are you on on that?
Well, we really are moving forward, and I wish I could say more tonight, but by next month is what their goal is, so I should be able to have something to announce, but we are moving forward, and so if I have something to announce, I mean, it is far enough along now that the filming would actually start in 2013, so we're just hoping, staying so finally, but we, the studio, everybody is involved and excited about it, and I'm excited because I actually am signing on as an executive producer for it, so I'll be able to be involved from beginning to end. So, we'll see, but I will certainly let all of you know when that happens. We want to see Curtis on the screen as soon as possible.
So what will it be cast?
Well, we don't know, because once we get this final part done, that's when the actual casting will start. My choice has always been, but that's just my choice. We can dream. I can't say that it would actually happen, but my Curtis Black in my mind has almost always been Blair Underwood. So. No, not yet. So, I mean, but, they'll work on that. So.
What city? Think they may be casting?
I'm not sure, because they do a lot of Atlanta and they do a lot of Chicago, and that's it's all about the tax breaks that they give Hollywood. So I think it'll just depend on all of that.
But you will announce what city it's in?
Oh yeah.
Because if it's in Atlanta, I have a daughter that does acting.
Oh, okay. So we're hoping, and like I said, just staying prayerful that something happens sooner rather than later, and we'll see.
And what can you tell an inspiring writer what to expect or how to start?
I think that the most important thing is to really figure out if this really is your passion, if this is something you really want to do, and then really write straight from the heart. And then, of course, learn the craft of writing, and then learn the business of publishing, and figure out how to build relationships with your readers just nationwide. Build a website, get really involved with social media, do everything you can to really get your work out to the masses.
And what can you say to the Lady of Knowledge Book Club?
I want to say thank you for all of their support throughout the years, and that I hope they will keep reading and reading and reading.